It is Indiana in the Morning, presented as always by First Commonwealth Bank here in WCCS, AM 1160 and FM 101.1. And Joe Block, Pirates broadcaster, is on the phone with us this morning, probably chasing that little girl around, aren't you?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, my wife just came and got her. So.
But after those late-night Pirate games, you went 12 innings last night. You get up early in the morning, you get to chase your baby around. That has to be fun.
Oh, it is fun. Yeah, she jumped into bed this morning and woke me up, and how can you not smile? So
yeah, she said,
it was great. But yeah, we've had some late arrivals the last couple of days. Unfortunately, when you play a length of a game like last night, you always want to be on the winning side of it, because then you feel like you put the extra time in, and the team feels like it was all worth the extra time for the victory.
Yeah, it's too bad last night. But you'll get back out there against the Dodgers again tonight, and you'll be there. It's a 4-game series. I want to talk with you this morning, though, about Sunday night and how exciting that must have been for the ball players and for you as a broadcaster, despite the story Bob Walk was telling us about the bat in your broadcast booth last night. What sort of excitements and what little things that we might not have seen on TV did really appeal to you on Sunday night at Williamsport, where the Pirates played against the Cardinals?
Oh, there were so many things. I mean, I think one of the first memories I had, and I actually took a picture of it, was seeing Joaquin Benoit, who's a 40-year-old reliever nearing the end of his career, a long major league career, ended up running into one of the coaches from where he grew up in Santiago, Dominican Republic, who was coaching the Dominican Republic entry in the Little League World Series, and he's a famed coach from that town, that city, and ended up talking with him, and he had known him since he was 11 years old. And then right behind him, there's a couple of Little League players who are not much older than 11 themselves, right? Mm-hmm. And they're posing for a photograph with a 6-year-old boy who is requesting an autograph from the Little League players. So he looks up to them. The Little League players are looking up to Benoit and all the other Pirates and hoping to be major leaguers. And Benoit had looked up to this man, now probably in his 60s or 70s, and looked up to him as a child because he taught him the game and got him to where he wanted to be in his baseball career. So I just thought it was so neat to see all the different generations. And we were walking around Lamade Stadium, and near between the two stadiums, there are two stadiums now at the Little League World Series, which I have never been there until the other day. So this is all news to me. But I saw Adam Frazier walking around. He had a big thing of nachos in his hand, and he just had a smile like a Cheshire cat, and just is so happy to just be walking around and seeing the sights and looking at some baseball and watching the kids play and having some nachos. And then during the game, the one that was at Bowman Field, the one that the Pirates and Cardinals played, there was a real palpable sense of the players were trying to, show the kids how well they can play. Mm-hmm. I really thought that was something that I was seeing, not showing off, but just, if they could run out that ground ball a little harder than maybe they normally do, or run a little farther to make a long catch. They were doing that, and making that great play at third base or whatever. It really seemed like they were doing that, and it was just such a neat atmosphere to feel. And it's such a small field. The kids, their families, and then the ball players, and they all seemed like there was a togetherness from all over the world, gathering in tiny Williamsport for a day of baseball. It was really, really nice.
I thought one of the interesting things to me was it came in the point of the season where, ball clubs can get bogged down in the drudgery of the season because it's every night you're working hard, and baseball can sometimes, can drag you down, especially if your team is not performing very well. But this was like a vitamin pill, I thought, for these guys. They got a little booster shot, and the phrase childlike enthusiasm was thrown all over the place at those major league ball players, and it seemed true.
Yeah, I think it was pervasive. I mean, everybody felt that way. Talking with the guys yesterday before the game back here in Pittsburgh, and they were saying the same thing. There was carryover to it. They were starting to feel rejuvenated, and I think it's and rightfully so. I think it's hard for folks to understand. Well, how can they get bogged down because they make a lot of money? They play a game for a living in front of adoring fans, and it's a wonderful experience. There's no doubt about that. I think that is certainly in the backs of their minds. But in any profession, whatever it is, if you do the same thing over and over again, after a while, certain parts of it might be able to become mundane. You may start getting, like for instance, the Pirates season has been pretty confounding. They've gotten close enough to be in contention, but never, really right there, never in first place so far, and so it can be a little frustrating. So things like that, they take their jobs very seriously. So I think, everyone can get wrapped up into that, and to step away from it and just be a ball player, a kid, and really, and then play a game that actually counts, but yet in the context of, all that they had seen that day and all that they were seeing, looking up and going, I haven't played in the field this size since I was, 17 years old. That I think was a stark reminder and really helped, I'm sure, the Cardinals as well. Just reset for a moment and go, wow, I'm really appreciative of where I am in life.
Yeah, it reminded me of Willie Stargell and his great saying that you play baseball, you don't work baseball. For you as a broadcaster, did it take you back to some of the early days when maybe you were doing high school games or college games or minor league ball?
Yeah, and I mean, I was doing minor league baseball in Billings, Montana 7 years ago. So, I mean, it wasn't, it wasn't all that long ago that, I had been working. I worked 9 years calling minor league baseball. And, I worked in the first time around in the Pioneer League. I worked, Billings had an old field, which has since been replaced, torn down. But it had chicken wire in front of the booth, and we were right at the back of the seats. It was the same style setup as Bowman Field. Bowman Field is, over 80 years old. Cobb Field in Billings was like that. My home ballpark in Great Falls was a little bit more elevated, but still, an old wooden ballpark. Helena, Montana, another old wooden ballpark from the 30s. So it really harkened me back to that time. The seating was about the same. And they would draw very well because up there in the summertime, this is their one chance to get out because it's cold, for very much of the year in Montana. So they were able to get out, and very much a community-supported team. Folks super kind, trying to help each other out, trying to help all these new people coming in from all over the world to play baseball, or in my case, broadcast it. And that's what Williamsport reminded me of. People were so gracious and welcoming. And they were excited to have us there, and we were excited to be there. So it did bring that back, and I loved, very selfishly, being able to sit. Bob and I were saying maybe 80 to 100 feet back behind home plate, and we're maybe 15 feet, off the plate. I mean, we could see the break of pitches, moving, sweeping from left to right. You could really appreciate the speed, say, of Felipe Rivero's fastball, the movement of Ivan Nova's sinker, things like that are really hard to pick up, and impossible really to pick up from where we sit at PNC Park. And then on television, you don't quite get the same feeling as if you're sitting and looking in the same way as the hitter would, with it coming at you. Yeah. And then you go, wow, it's really tough to hit. It's really tough to throw a pitch, for a strike right in the spot you want it. And that was a reminder for us, I think, too, that the game is very difficult, and these men that play it are very, very talented.
Pirates broadcaster Joe Block is on the air with us this morning. We're talking about the Buccos and the Cardinals when they played on Sunday night in Williamsport at the home of the Little League World Series, and all of the enthusiasm and the fun of that evening. I thought one of the great dynamics of the whole night was how it seemed almost as if the major league players were fans just as much of the little league players as the other way around, even to the point where at the end of the game the major league players lined up like the kids do, and both teams put the handshake line in motion. It was great to watch.
Yeah, I just got chills when you said that because that was unexpected. Bob and I were just doing our normal comments at the end of the game. And Bob looks up and he goes, "They're shaking hands." And I look up, because I'm looking at totaling up my score sheet. And I look up and I got chills then. I just couldn't believe it to see, the teams doing that. And that's exactly what I never thought about it before that moment, but you think about it and you go, that's exactly what should happen, right? Good sportsmanship, showing the kids, hey, here's how you do it at the end of the game. And throughout the day, especially at Lamade Stadium and over at the volunteer field behind it, the players were seated. Now, this was kind of arranged where the players and some of the Pirate players and the Little League players that weren't participating in the game would be seated together in a special area inside the stadiums. Well, they don't have to. They can also, the players, can all sit together, and the Little League players could all sit together. But they came in kind of at the same time, and they just naturally, there was no coercing of this. They just one guy went over there and sat by a couple of the players, and then another Pirate player would sit a few players down, so two or three guys could talk to this player, two or three guys could talk to that player, and it was a very intimate type setup where they could get almost kind of one-on-one time with a major league player for a half an hour. I mean, it wasn't just like the Pirates went there for 10 minutes. I mean, they were there for a couple of hours, maybe even 3 hours. I've lost track of time. It was so much fun. But it's 2 or 3 hours that they were there. So, I mean, they're really talking to players. I was sitting next to some of the guys and hearing some of the conversations taking place. A lot of it had to do with baseball. Some of it had to do with, just how to be a ball player, how to carry yourself, what's it like to do this or that in the major leagues. And the players were asking questions, the Pirate players, of the Little Leaguers, because all of them except for Max Moroff wanted to play in the Little League World Series at some point, and they didn't get that opportunity. So it was a mutually just super cool experience, and it was really wonderful to see. It was one of the highlights, and will always be one of the highlights of my career, and I'm so grateful to be there, especially for the first one, because there's nothing better than the first time.
Absolutely. Maxie actually got to play in the Little League World Series, and so it was a return for him. Joe, you get the Pirates tonight against the Dodgers, got to bring home a win. Meantime, you get a chance to enjoy the family today, and I appreciate your spending some time with us this morning on Indiana in the Morning.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on anytime.
He's Joe Block of the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Buccos and the Dodgers tonight from PNC Park. The airtime 640 here on WCCS AM 1160 and FM 101.1. Chuck Clark is going to take over